Yeah, I told Jeremy that a long time ago.
I'm going to punch that lozenge out of your head.
I don't have a lozenge.
Whatever it is, has to go before we start.
Gotcha. No problem, boo. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 22 of From the Middle. I am one of your hosts, Dylan Hubble.
I am another one of your hosts, Kendall Alala.
And I'm the third of your hosts, Corey Hubble.
And we are 3/3 of your hosts from the middle.
That's one whole.
That's one whole pie.
That's one whole pie.
I think of everything in terms of food.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like whole pizza pies.
By the way, From the Middle podcast, now available in pumpkin spice.
Ah, it's that time of the year again, eh?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a wonderful time of year. So we are From the Middle. Something about being guys that you listen to on our podcast, and
Yeah, that's the intro.
that's something to that effect.
Yeah,
I don't know.
they get it.
If you know it, pause right here and say it out loud to yourself gleefully, and then when you're done, you can hit play.
Yeah.
And come.
Imagine a line
Yeah.
that is right in front of you, and there's there's a left portion of that line, there's a right portion of that line, and we're somewhere. We're not those.
Yeah,
We're another option.
maybe somewhere.
So for those of you who are visual,
Yeah.
get a piece of paper and draw out a line,
Not while you're driving, if you're driving.
and then plot us in the middle of that line,
Yeah,
and that's where you can find us.
that's where we are.
Strong start. Strong start.
Feels
fellas.
real good.
I feel really good about this one.
I feel really good
Yeah.
about this beginning.
So
So this is episode
the
20.
podcast is going to be this for an hour, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fine. So I feel really good. I'm excited to be back recording. It feels like it's been eons. I don't know how long it's actually been. I just felt like using that word. And I'm excited to kind of catch up. We have another voicemail we want to play today, which is very exciting. And catch up on how things are going. So anybody have any updates before our voicemail?
I feel bad for our producer and 1/3 of our pie hole, Kendall, who just returned from a family trip this weekend, got home, grabbed the keys, and then left again to come and hang out with us. So thank you to the Alala family for sharing your husband and father with us.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
appreciate it.
Hey, and you said that exactly right. I'm quite dedicated, which forces my wife to be also quite dedicated.
Yep.
So,
Yep. So we see you, Amy, and we appreciate you sharing your hubby with us. Good trip though. Did you guys have a good time?
yeah, I know. It was good. It was good. It was fun. It was relaxing. Got to see people that I don't see very often. I have allergies, and we were in the middle of woods in a cabin, and so, that wasn't fun. There may have been a hotel stay for me for one of those nights for some relief, and that is nothing to say toward the cleanliness or anything like that of the cabin. It was fantastic, and for 99.9% of the population, it would have been a wonderful, healthy experience. For me, I'm just not allowed to go outside in October,
Yeah.
November, September. Right around this time of year, I should pretty
Yeah.
much just stay inside.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, I like doing it.
What's your favorite hotel amenity?
My favorite hotel amenity?
Yeah,
Free cable.
that's good.
I would say that.
I was going to jump straight to Wi-Fi, but last
No, definitely not. For me, it's like I've got Wi-Fi at home. I don't have cable at home, and so like I enjoy going back to the days of having cable. I don't miss cable, but I look forward to cable in a hotel.
I can see that. The last hotel I stayed in had a Keurig in the room. I don't stay at many hotels. That's probably super common
That's
now.
very common.
It's more
But it
common.
was far better K-Cup coffee than the hotel lobby coffee. So it was much needed.
If you take those every day, if they put like 4 or 6 in there, you take those every day. They refill them every day, and you just keep shoving them in your bag. This is like Ross on the episode of Friends where he prides himself in how much free stuff he can get from the hotel room. That is one of those things.
Yeah.
Sure, he's like, did you get the K-Cups?
Next
No,
time
no,
I
it's-
stay in a hotel with K-Cups, I'll snag them for you.
Yeah.
I don't have a Keurig anymore.
I when I get to a hotel that has K-cups in the room, because I bring my own little travel coffee kit.
Of course you do.
I'm making
Yeah.
my own bird grinding my own, and right there in the room. But as a service, I take those K-cups and I throw them into the trash can and make them refill them every day.
Why would something about wasteful, eco-friendly sign on the bathroom door? And
Right.
yeah, you don't
Yeah.
care about that.
Well, yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, that's fun. So, do either of you actually indulge the please, just hang towels that you don't need washed? And
I will opt out of housekeeping a lot of times because
Yeah.
you get like bonus points. So if you're
Oh, wow.
if you're trying to stay loyal to like Hilton Honors is the one I try to frequent, and if you opt out of all housekeeping for your entire stay, you get like 1,000 or something extra bonus points.
that's
really good at that.
smart.
And I don't need towels and they'll still give you towels if you ask for them. They just don't come automatically every day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I always opt out.
Yeah.
that's actually a really smart way.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to look into my wife and I are like, we're Hyatt people
Yeah.
for the same reasons.
Yeah.
Like the Hyatt credit card is the one I carry.
Yep.
I did not know
See
that.
if they offer
I hope
that.
Hyatt offers that, because I do that as well. Like with the towels anyway. I want them to make my bed. I think that's nice.
Yeah.
But no, I do hang up the towels, and I don't make them give me new ones.
Yeah. I generally don't. It does feel, the more you think about it, the more wasteful it feels. So I try
Yeah.
not to be that person. I think actually continental breakfast is the thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say hot breakfast.
Hot breakfast. I get weird about it a little bit. Last time we traveled, I probably asked my wife like 10 times, like, hey, when do you think you're going to be ready to head downstairs? So finally she's like, why do you keep asking? Because her frustration is absolutely warranted at this point. I'm like, because breakfast ends at like 9:30 and it's like 9:05. I'm like, the later
Yeah,
you
what's
get
with
there,
breakfast ending at 9:30?
stuff runs out, and they're not going to refill it when you're the last 5-minute people.
Yeah.
And so she's like, oh, I had no idea. Go ahead and go get breakfast then.
No idea. I will not stay at a hotel if they don't have hot breakfast.
That's exactly how I picked the last 2 hotels that I picked, because you had to pay for breakfast.
You know what's annoying
at a lot of places.
is that the fancier the hotel, the less amenities are free.
Yeah.
Like if you stay at a fancy like Metro downtown hotel, any one of those, you're not getting free breakfast at any of them.
Yeah.
And I find that annoying. Like
I
Hyatt, for
totally
example,
agree.
if you stay at like one of the downtown Hyatts, one of the Metro Hyatts, you get nothing. If you stay at a Hyatt place in the suburb, you get everything.
Yeah. So weird.
But
Yeah.
if it depending on how high you are up in the rewards system, you could get the club level.
But even that's, well, yeah, you could, but that's more expensive. So we actually
okay.
stayed club level one time because it was actually, what was that? I don't remember. We were on a special trip, just the two of us, which doesn't happen all that often, and we had enough points saved up that like we could afford to stay on the club level, which was cool. It was a fun experience. So like, you need your key card to get to that floor, and then you walk in, and then there's the club level lounge that has just all day. It has food, like good food that's just grab your own, and drinks that are just grab your own.
Mini fridges with all you can drink pop.
So anyway, save up your points for
Yeah.
years and do a club level experience. That
That's
was
worth it.
That was fun. Did it once. It's
Nice.
probably the only time I'll do it.
Well, you got to save up all the points again.
Well, but I mean, we'll use those for cheaper stays
Yeah.
more often.
That's a fun hotel tangent. That wasn't planned, but there's wide variances in hotels, obviously, and perks and whatever. A friend that used to travel a ton told me, I don't think this works anymore. It hasn't worked the last several times, but he said, if you're ever on one of the travel sites and you're quoting hotel, always call the hotel directly and tell them what you found and see what they'll do, if they'll match it or beat it. Sounds obvious, but we did it one time. We stayed at an Omni hotel, and I said, hey, just wanted to check. I saw this rate online, and they beat it by a few bucks and threw in breakfast, which they normally had to pay for.
That's nice.
Because they wanted you to book directly.
And
So,
I think you probably it's possible you got a better room, because I've heard that, right? That
Very
they have
possible.
They have like some of their not as awesome rooms or areas of the hotel, like first floor. Nobody wants to be on the first floor, and if you book through Travelocity, your chances of being on the first floor go up. I've heard that kind of thing.
Yeah, not an issue when you're staying in nice Hiltons, but yeah, if you're, I mean, there's a first floor everywhere, but I mean,
Yeah.
the crappy rooms, there's less crappy rooms at a really nice hotel than there are, maybe some of the more moderately priced options. Anyways, that's fun.
Indeed. Hey, did you guys know that 7 is the healthiest of all of the numbers?
Why is that, Kendall?
Because 7 eats 3 squared meals a day. Come on. Who's there? Is anyone there yet? Is anyone there yet?
Somebody's laughing somewhere.
7, 8, 9. It's you got to take that turn. 7, 8, 9. How about I say it this way? Why did 7, 8, 9? Why does 7, 8, 9? Why did I don't know how to ask that question now.
Why did 7 eat 9?
Yeah, why did 7 eat 9? Because we've all heard the joke of why was 6 afraid of 7 because 7 ate 9.
Right.
So now I have to pose the question, why does 7 eat 9? The answer is because 7 eats 3 squared meals a day.
Okay.
3 squared is 9. Are you guys not tracking with this joke at all? You don't understand.
I went to art school, so like math for me.
What's 3 squared?
9.
Yeah. 7, 8, 3 squared.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Man, I'm going to download a laugh track,
Yeah, that'd be good.
and I'm going to put it right here.
Yeah, or
And
we'll just cut this whole section
And
out.
I'm not cutting a thing. That was a quality joke.
Well,
see if you can download a cricket track.
if beauty is in the eye of the beholder, quality of the joke is in the ear holes of the listener.
Whatever. We're going to get comments. We're going to get comments on that one.
I hope
I believe it.
Yeah.
Positive ones.
Yeah.
That are like, you go, Kendall. You
go, girlfriend.
that was a funny thing that you did.
Yeah. So you had a nice trip though, other than the being super
Yeah.
snotty. And
Other than being snotty. Yeah.
snotty the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. It's good.
How about you, bro? Do you have any?
No major one, but I might need a little help here. I've watched enough of The Office, so I shouldn't need any. But so a coworker, our desks are kind of in clumps, and a coworker of mine just moved to a different part of the office, and so now there's a huge desk right beside mine. And my most immediate reaction was to ask my boss if I could make Megadesk, which he said was, of course, he said was fine. So I could do that at any time, but I feel like there's something greater. There's a higher calling to this empty desk beside me, and I don't know yet. So if you have any good ideas,
Is it right beside you?
Yeah, yes, it's side by side with mine.
And what's the likelihood that it's going to get filled up with a new hire?
I mean, decent chance.
You guys are
but-
hiring pretty rapidly, right?
Yeah, decent chance, but it's also there's a couple other empty desks around.
Is there a barrier where your legs are between the two, or is it one big open?
It other than a couple legs, it's open, and it's a motorized desk, so you can change the height.
Ooh, of course it is.
So I was
Startup
thinking
company.
easily could do bunk beds. I thought some Edison lights underneath. Maybe one of those paper campfires where the
Yeah.
paper thing blows.
How
And
high does it go if you elevate it as high as it'll go? How high is that?
It would probably give you 4 feet of clearance under the desk.
Okay, so here's what I would do. The desk that you're currently at, leave it at that height, make that your normal functioning desk.
Okay.
The empty desk beside you with your motorized button, take that as high as it'll go, put Edison lights underneath it, and then put a little bean bag in there. Mm-hmm. At a startup company, nobody's going to think twice for you having a little rest area. So, because in order for you to live your best life
Yep.
and for you to be the most productive, you need an area where you can clear your mind
Yep.
and relax. So I would make a little fort on that second desk area.
Yeah, that feels good. Mm-hmm. If there's any other suggestions outside of Megadesk or a small lounging area with a beanbag, feel free to let me know.
What would you put on top then? Because you've got a whole perfectly good surface.
Yeah, I don't know.
Action figures,
Legos.
Lego sets.
Make a Lego land.
What about one of those little like handheld race car tracks where you
Yeah.
can like drive the race cars? People could stand beside it.
I feel
and, like,
good about it.
run race cars.
The run race cars that are running through a Lego town.
Yeah, that'd be good. A couple buildings. Yeah. Yeah, I like all these ideas. Okay.
All right.
I just needed some options. But yeah, the great thing is because I immediately got the approval for Megadesk when I asked. That's so ill-defined. Anything I come up with now, I'm just going to call Megadesk.
Right.
Like that's obviously what I meant by Megadesk when I asked. Was a racetrack, beanbag chair, Edison lights, and a refrigerator. I mean, what else would Megadesk be?
Exactly.
In today's political climate, too, no one can really say anything because you can be like, this is my comfort desk
Yes.
space.
Yeah.
Relaxing area. I need it for
Yep.
my mental health.
Fair.
You can't say anything.
And there's actually a small putting green right behind my chair and that desk. So,
There actually is?
yeah, one of the little putting.
Yeah, no one's going to care about Edison lights in a beanbag chair.
I don't think so either.
Yeah,
I think
you're
I
good.
can. I think I can pull
You're
that
good to
off.
go.
Okay.
Take pictures.
Yep. I'll see. I'll see what I can throw together, and if I can get anything good, I'll share it.
Awesome.
What about you, Corey?
So, in a previous episode, we talked about that for an experiment, I should start watching WWE cold with like no knowledge of what's going on and just start watching it again.
Right.
Well, right after we recorded that episode, the following week was going to be the premiere of Monday Night Raw, Wednesday Night NXT, which is like the farm system, right, where the young up and comers, and then
Right.
Friday Night SmackDown.
Yeah.
And The Rock was going to make an appearance on SmackDown.
Yeah.
So that-
SmackDown on broadcast, by the way. So that's exciting.
SmackDown on their new home, Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I watched 7 hours of wrestling. So I went from not having watched since high school to watching this past week.
Yeah.
And I called Dylan on Friday night. Actually, I think I had DVR'd it, so I was actually watching the next day.
Okay.
Yeah, I was watching Saturday morning when I called you. And I was like so excited because I was like, I could so easily get right back into this, no problem. Like, it was really interesting to see like all of the same archetypes are there. I mean, it was just really interesting to dive into it and to watch that much wrestling. Like you could watch and go, oh, I see. That's kind of like the Shawn Michaels character. That's kind of like the D-Generation X group,
Right.
which is like Undisputed Era, like those guys in
Right.
the NXT. Oh, that guy's kind of like the new scary version of Kane.
Yeah.
Right, like the lights go out, and that guy. I don't know all their names yet, but like that guy with the mask and the dreads.
The creepy guy who like kind of like what Undertaker
Yeah.
sometimes would just like lights go off.
Lights go off. and
Lights
then
come on, he's in the middle of the ring.
Yeah, with no explanation. He's like,
Right.
So you could see all those same archetypes, and also you can tell that when SmackDown premiered on Fox, they did 30 minutes before it started. They did like a blue carpet event where they had like a bunch of the old Hall of Famers come and boxers and celebrities and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was like a lot of legitimate hype around it and excitement around it. And so like it was really cool to see from a marketing standpoint, they're clearly doing this like then and now thing where they're in a transition phase from the older guys that we grew up watching. Some of them are still active in wrestling to this sort of new era. And then to see The Rock come back and just, I mean, he had that crowd whipped into a frenzy at the Staples Center.
Man.
And if you've been watching wrestling and you know all this stuff, I'm gonna get names wrong and I'm gonna botch like all the correct names and probably their backstories. But there's a guy who had won King of the Ring.
Yeah.
And he's this like really cocky, like you kind of like hate him. Like he's kind of this cocky. He walks around now with a crown and a robe because he won King of the Ring. So when he walks into the arena, he calls everybody his subjects. And this is now his kingdom.
Right.
Right. And so like he's just up in the middle of the ring like bragging and the crowd is like boo cheering him and whatever.
Right.
So The Rock comes out and says, looking like a broke ass Burger King, like whatever. And everybody's like, yeah. And who's the new chick? Becky, the redheaded chick. She's the Raw Women's Champion.
Yeah, I don't know names either.
So she was out there and her and The Rock are like kind of buddies and they're making fun of this guy. So just in like 7 sentences, The Rock totally undermines everything that's gone on in the years that he's like in the time that he's not been there and has
Right.
the whole crowd whipped into a frenzy. And then he does the people's elbow on this guy and he's all
Yeah.
of his catchphrases Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
called Dylan. I'm like, dude, it's so cool. Like, it's like, I'm back.
Yeah,
It was
man.
really fun to watch that much wrestling.
I mean, there's a lot of like old school cameos that happen in WWE.
Jerry Lawler is still an announcer.
Yeah,
Booker T is one of the announcers on SmackDown. Like Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan came out during Raw.
yeah,
They're going to have these teams fight at Hell in the Cell this I think it happened this past weekend. So yeah, there's just so many like people that make cameos or are coaches for teams or like still kind of come in. They don't really fight that much, but like you can tell they've still got an audience of like guys our age, and then they've got this young audience. It's really
Right.
cool that they're bridging. It seems like they're bridging the gap pretty well.
yeah. It's like the Rock and like I think like it seems like pretty much annually has had
Some sort of
a comeback match.
Yeah.
So like he's done John Cena and
Yeah.
but well, and John Cena's a little bit younger, but he comes back regularly
Yeah.
too. But like I was disappointed to hear that like the last time that he had showed up, and I guess it took him like days of recovery afterward. And then like earlier this year in an interview, he had said basically like, yeah, nah, I'm like done.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna hang that up now, for good. And I was sad because it was like, that was when I would hear that The Rock was going to be on WWE. I was like, oh dude, I'm going to figure out how to see this. And so usually it was afterward and trying to find, bootlegs, whatever.
Yeah.
But then when I heard that he was coming back for the premiere of SmackDown,
That's funny.
I was way excited, and I have not seen it yet, and I want to.
Yeah,
Obviously,
it's
I'm
worth
going to,
watching the
but-
first 15 minutes of the SmackDown premiere on Fox. Like, try to find it on Hulu or on something.
I think like Raw's on Hulu, but
Yeah.
SmackDown hadn't been, and so I'm hoping that SmackDown will be on Hulu.
Yeah, watch that. I think it's 15 to 17 minutes or so is the whole. And they, you talked about the 24/7 belt, so they did like a little update on that.
Yeah.
And something happened backstage where like Marshmello, the DJ, the musician was there,
Okay.
the guy that wears the big mushroom head.
Yeah.
And like he like sort of accidentally got the belt. Because somebody had beaten somebody else up and he was just right there. So he just like, I might as well pin this guy. So he pins him and Marshmello has the 24/7 belt for a while. It was just really cool to like all the old theme songs and it was just, I'm like, oh man. So now I'm DVRing it and I don't know that I'm back, but I still want to do the 2-week experiment. It's only been one. So I'll watch for another week. So Mike, who's a middler, you'll be pleased to know that I really enjoyed my week's worth of watching all the premieres. It was a great time to start. I was like, I can't not start with all the premieres, right?
Right. We just talked about it. And
it was perfect.
And then you look and you're like, they're all premiering right now.
This week, might as well.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's funny. As soon as you brought up the King, I immediately thought of the old movie Ready to Rumble with Jimmy King.
Yeah.
I will rule you.
Yeah.
I will reign supreme.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's like they copied a movie that was making fun of wrestling to make that character. It's so good.
Yeah, all the same archetypes are there. And I don't say that to take away from it. I just say like you could very easily fall right back into it because those same sort of character arcs. You've got your bad guy, you've got that kind of weird, creepy, evil guy. You've got the weird, cocky guy, which was your Shawn Michaels or Val Venus or somebody like that. It was just really cool to see in all the teams. And
they're all going back and forth, too.
There's a really super hillbilly tag team group that's really funny with one super fat guy and he just rubs his belly. Like, it's just like all the same stuff.
But if it's essentially just another soap opera, you're going to have the same type of characters.
For sure.
You're going to have the older male villain on the soap operas that, is always trying to manipulate everyone. And you're going to have a lot of the same type of characters.
So, no, I haven't watched sort of the primetime stuff in a long time.
Yeah.
So I could be wrong in this, but my impression is that like the budget is obviously different. So you don't have a Stone Cold figure driving a semi
right
to the ring. Like that kind of thing, I don't think is happening.
Maybe it was because it was the premiere of SmackDown on Fox. It felt like pretty similar.
Did it?
It felt pretty similar. NXT, which is the up and coming, the one on Wednesday nights, That was clearly a much smaller venue.
Okay.
And they had it at Full Sail Arena. So the Full Sail is the like video game college
Right.
thing, and it was a really tiny little arena. But the energy in there, all those fans knew all the catchphrases and all the right when to cheer at the right time.
Yeah.
So the energy in there felt greater than, in some ways, the huge venues of Raw and SmackDown.
Sure.
But you could tell, like, okay, these are the more like lightweight, sort of up and coming guys, and yeah, it's really fun. So that's one update. The second thing is, so Sherry and I. So by the time you're listening to this, it'll be a week or so since it happened. But we went to the Ohio State, Michigan State night game in Ohio Stadium.
And
Super fun. So some friends of ours had been given club level seats for all the home conference games as well as the season opener. And there's 4 of them, and they got 6 tickets for each of those games. Mm-hmm. So they asked Sherry and I if we wanted to go, and it's like, we also have a parking pass, which, can I just say, was probably more exciting.
Just feel like a different person when you have that parking
if that's
pass,
not a
man.
sign you're growing up, I don't know what
Man.
it is. Like, oh, let me tell you about this parking spot.
If you've not been to a game at Ohio Stadium, and if you have, you have to walk a pretty long way.
Yeah, I mean, you're finding street parking like a mile away or more.
Yeah, unlike a lot of big college towns, we are a metropolitan area. So like Happy Valley, for example, is out in the middle of like nowhere, right? So Ohio Stadium is in the middle of a pretty major metropolitan area. So you got to walk a long way. So to be able to just flash the parking pass at a sheriff's deputy and they go, oh, right this way.
Yeah.
And you pull up, I showed you guys a picture. We were, I don't know how, you could hit the stadium with a pitching wedge.
Yeah.
We're right there. And I'm like, oh, this has already been one of the greatest Buckeye game experiences of my life. And then the guy that we were with, so he had some contacts and some friends who had a big tailgate party right outside on the west side of the campus. And so like Nicole Meyer was there and a bunch of other, which is Urban Meyer's daughter. And they just had music blaring and free drinks and food and barbecue and like this huge like tailgate party. So we did that. And then by the time we were ready to kind of go inside the stadium, you go to the Huntington club level and you go in an air conditioned space. And then they have security guards and ticket, like guys checking tickets at these elevators. And you go up to the Huntington club level. Like, I didn't even know you could watch games this way. I didn't even know people did this. And it's just all this carpeted, air conditioned area with your own set of bathrooms and concessions. And then to walk down, so then you go back outside and you walk down, and we were right behind all of the players' families.
Yeah.
So we're in like the 6th row right behind them in the club level. And it was just amazing. It was a blackout game. The whole time we kept thinking, like, did some of these people not get the memo that this was supposed to be a blackout, right?
Yeah.
And so my buddy Tim, who him and his wife Julie had given us the tickets, it's starting to get loud now where this is all like the pregame stuff. So like Brutus is out there, the band's out there. It's starting to get loud. He turns to me at one point and goes, can you imagine how embarrassed you'd be if you wore like white? He didn't realize the guy in front of him had a white shirt on. He said it so loudly. Can you imagine how embarrassed you'd be? And I just point to the guy and he goes, oh, oops. But just the atmosphere was just electric. And I don't know. I mean, it's the night game, right? It's not bright outside. But like by the time it gets dark and the field is the only thing lit up, you feel like you're that much closer because the clarity of the evening and just all the lights on them. And you could see so well from those seats. It was just an amazing game. And I think it was the 4th quarter when I took note of just how electric the atmosphere when that pick 6 that didn't end up happening because of the blindside block call. But I forget the defensive player who picked it and ran back 60 some yards for a touchdown, which ended up getting called back because of a blindside block, which from our purview didn't look bad at all. But apparently there's a new reading in the rule that says any forcible contact on a player.
Oh yeah, they've been on that all year now. It's if you don't see the if you're not hitting like the front numbers, you can't hit the shoulder anymore.
But even Herbie said like that was really written to protect like on punt returns and kickoff returns.
That's where you see it most.
But this one didn't seem like it warranted that flag. But then they were saying that's what they're saying. There's some new reading of this rule that they're really cracking down on that.
Right.
Anyway, just a great night. So much fun. I mean, there's just something special about any big stadium like that. Even the Big House has its own traditions and stuff like that. But I mean, Sherry, we've already talked about how much she loves college football. It was just a spectacular night, and we were, throats sore from cheering, and such a great game. And yeah,
I know we talked about it a little bit. Like those are such huge recruiting games.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really a lot of what they're obviously then playing the game for the fans.
That's why they're piling everything onto that.
That's a lot of why they're doing that whole ambiance to the stadium and the game and the night and the alternate jerseys and the music's a little louder and the fans are a little louder. And so, and it from some of the recruiting news after it seemed to have gone over well. There's a quarterback out of California that was pretty impressed by the whole atmosphere.
Sure.
But if you imagine being in that atmosphere and you're 16, 17, 18, however old some of these guys are, I just can't imagine. We know that we have one of the biggest stadiums in college football. It's the same for Michigan for you, Kendall. I mean, if you go to Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State.
With Michigan, you take away the one of the.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I think Penn State, did they build bigger? No, so it's Michigan, then Penn State.
Michigan's the largest sports venue in the country.
And then A&M just upgraded theirs, so I think Texas A&M has one of the largest now.
Yeah.
But either way, you're talking top five for the Big Ten has three of the top five biggest stadiums.
Monumental things. They put NFL stadiums to shame.
Yeah, I can't imagine being a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid. You're used to playing in front of a couple hundred people at your high school game. And showing up to that, and the stadium's just shaking.
Yeah,
and the music's pumping, and that's so cool. Obviously not the world I live in, but I get why that's effective.
Yeah.
And I'm not even thinking about the tour through the stadium and the locker rooms that they probably get. And
all of that stuff is designed around recruiting. Like that's where their bread and butter is. That's where it has to be.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, like you're saying, they pile it all onto one night, and then that's the night that they invite them all to come visit. So if anybody, like, especially older generations, but even like we would remember growing up that like, Big Ten, like your Ohio State, Michigan, your games were at noon. And that's the way it was. And then when they started messing around with that, there was all this talk about, it's just for TV ratings and blah, 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 that they're moving it around.
Yeah.
And then when they started doing night games, like it's only been within the past several years that there is even a night game at Michigan.
Yeah.
For example. But now the universities love it.
Yeah.
And it's because of what Corey was talking about. The environment is just that much different.
Yeah.
And then when you add the special jerseys on top of that, make it a special fun thing for the fans and tell them it's a blackout.
Yep.
Like you said, you play the music a little louder and then you have like a recipe to invite your recruits to.
Yeah.
And then when you see like all of the locker room and weight room and the crazy, it's like that's not what they used to look like. The
Right.
only reason they look like that now at the major universities is so that they can recruit.
Well, and that's where they can spend money. Officially, no one's paying a player
Right.
directly at this point.
Right.
But what can you offer them? A TV in every locker.
Right.
And a huge, cart full of Nike or Adidas apparel, every quarter that they're there. And, Ohio State had installed all these food stations around campus for, I think it was for anyone that was in the athletic department could go, and there's like sandwiches and fruit and snacks, and these things are open most of the day where people can go load up on food. And, it's just, those are the things you can offer.
Yeah.
And that's what sets an Ohio State apart from, a program like New Mexico State or somebody like that. That's
Right.
a tiny program with, 1,000 fans show up for a game. It's just night and day.
And I just did some quick fact checking. It was Jordan Fuller, and it was an 80-yard interception return for a would-be touchdown. But anyway, you might be thinking, because I know we have global reach and people all over the world listen to this podcast, you might be thinking, like, it's a lot of fuss about college football. But when you grow up, for us, I mean, like we say all the time, Central, the center of the country. I almost said Central America again. Being in Ohio, where historically your pro teams, football anyways, have not been great.
Right.
College football sort of becomes your NFL.
Yep.
Definitely.
And so you look to the Buckeyes. People in Central Ohio do root for the Browns and the Bengals, but it's like it's not as electric as a following as it is for
Right. It's
Ohio
not
State
like
football.
The grocery stores are empty during Buckeye football games around here. Like
And
it's the only sporting event where that would be true around here in Central Ohio.
And so when you go, and there's all these fun things that you don't get to see on TV, like how at the north end in the north end student section, in the fourth quarter when it's a clear win, the student section will try to get people to do IO. So they'll all together really loud go, "Hey, cameraman, OH," and try to see if the ESPN cameraman will go IO, right?
Right.
Well, Sparty was at their end of the stadium. And so they go, "Hey, Sparty, OH." And Sparty gave him the finger because the game was basically over at that point, right? So just all that fun stuff. Or they'll shout back and forth to each other from the student section on the north end and the south end. And all this fun stuff that occurs in the T-shirt and Brutus doing like costume changes and coming out and doing all kind of, it's just such a great night, which is again our equivalent of the NFL. So it was a pretty fun time.
Yeah, and I think that's a good contrast to draw because you're talking 40,000 more seats for the biggest college stadiums than an NFL stadium.
Right.
You're talking like world soccer level attendance for some of these games. And a quick search pulled up that Michigan is the largest, then Penn State, then Ohio State, then Texas A&M, then Texas. So basically 3 Big Ten teams and 2 Texas schools are the largest 5 stadiums.
Right, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, and how many times will you pull up an NFL game on Sunday and see like all these empty seats?
Right.
Frequently. And it's not like there's that many more games than... Because you're not talking preseason. Nobody's going to fold an NFL team for an empty stadium for a preseason game. You're not talking that many more games, for an NFL team. 4 more games to a regular season. Mm-hmm. So it's not like baseball where there's a billion games and you got to
And they're having them in the middle of the afternoon on a work day.
Yeah, it's exactly right. These are weekend games, generally speaking, and there's only a couple more for the NFL with a much smaller stadium. So demand should be similar when you factor in less tickets but a few more games. Mm-hmm. So it's we all get it in this part of the country or any part of the country that's one of those stadiums, especially.
Right.
But it is more unique to different parts of the world what college sports looks like.
Before we pull off of sports, do we want to weigh in California passing the law or considering passing the law about paying players
and Ohio's discussing it now.
Ohio's discussing it. I'm okay with it.
Did California pass it?
They did. They did pass it. The NCAA is going to fight it. Ohio's considering it.
And I think I saw Tim Tebow or something on SportsCenter is like super outspoken against it.
Yeah.
I can understand why people would be against it, but there's one thing that I would say is I like the whole thing that happened with Chris Spielman and others a few years ago, coming down on universities of using their likeness to profit or to sell advertising, without giving anything to the players.
Right.
And now in Chris Spielman's case, he had been retired even from the NFL for a while, and so they could have paid him but didn't. But for the college players that are currently there, I mean, if you're going to sell merchandise or the popular NCAA video game situation, if you're going to sell these things and put college players' names on, that by law you can't give them money,
right? Or
by NCAA regulation, by law, the law I don't think cares. But I mean, that's, to me, that is like, it is so blatant in your face. We're making money off of your backs,
right?
Yeah,
and we're not going to throw you any.
Yeah, it's certainly a broken system when a college athlete can't write his own name on a piece of paper for a kid.
Yeah.
That's a broken system.
Exactly. So I mean, I get the idea of trying to preserve the amateurness of it all, but I mean, if we're being real, like college football is not the same thing as college baseball.
Right.
Football does not have a farm system. College football is the farm system.
Right.
It is every bit as pro-am as all of the other baseball leagues are. Every bit. And and it's making more money than those than the pro-am baseball leagues are, and the affiliate teams are making. To me, I mean, I'm honestly okay with it. Now, I get that there's going to be an argument of these are college kids, and this whole idea that we're going to be giving college kids the kind of money that they will be able to make for themselves. But again, at that, I say basically, well, they're getting everything else. They're getting all of the notoriety. They're getting the fame. And as long as people are willing to pay the money for it, I'm okay with it. If they can make money now, so they're not getting paid by the university, and I don't think that should change. But what this law is saying that they can make money off of their own likeness, right? So if you're a famous quarterback for a popular team and you have national reach, you can. I think that is saying you can make money off of even advertising.
I believe so.
Like an ad agency can hire you and pay you, and I don't see why that should be wrong.
At the same universities where they teach you entrepreneurship.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're going to a university and you're in business school, and while you're in business school, you start a business and start making money, it's the same thing.
Yep.
The dollar amount is different, but other than that, it's the same thing. Like you're learning how to become if anything, maybe start teaching these kids like how, you're going to be getting this intake of cash, and you're in a system now in college with a coaching staff that is sort of your parents kind of handed you off to them. They can look after you and say, hey, you have this money coming in. Let's talk about how to do this wisely.
Yeah.
Instead of throwing them to the NFL and getting all of these stories that you hear of kids going in and then getting their signing checks and then things not panning out, and they spent all their money and now their career is done because they got hurt or they weren't as good as the pros thought they were going to be, and then now they're selling Subarus.
Yeah.
For
Right.
So I don't know. That's my thoughts. I'm cool with it. The university's not paying them, and I don't think they should. If they can make a side business, let them.
So I have two thoughts there. I mean, with the demand on these student athletes, they're not going to be able to get a job at Wendy's or Taco Bell just from a time commitment in class. Like they're
Right.
not going to be able to do that.
Right.
So that's the first thing. The second thing, you brought up a great point about they need to have some sort of education. So I was talking to my brother Jacob about this, who has a big, extensive sports background. He was an All-American track athlete, but also has a background in like counseling. And he was saying like there needs to be an increase, and I think they're starting it, and to teach these kids, like especially the ones that are going directly from college to the pros, you're going to have money like you've never seen before. You're going to have people in your life coming out of the woodwork to take advantage of you like you never have before. You're going to have women throwing themselves at you like you've never had before. Like they need like an education on how to deal with that from like a psychological perspective.
Yeah.
And that needs to happen. And because how common is the story when they get that first signing bonus on that first contract and they just go off the deep end because they're not prepared to deal with and cope with that new level of fame and money and options and
Right.
people trying to take advantage. And so that's a couple different issues wrapped into one. But I'm curious to think, Dylan, what your thoughts on the whole paying the players thing is.
Yeah, I think you guys have already set up some clear distinctions. Like to back it up just a little bit. Yes, this money is not coming from the university. The university's not paying them for that.
Right.
We're not talking about their scholarship. I mean, that's something in theory they've earned, or they're paying tuition or whatever. Right. So this is somebody wants to sign an autograph. Somebody wants to be in a local car dealership ad, and they're willing to get paid for that. And I would fall into the same camp with you guys. To me, the university's not paying them. They're not doing anything illegal or immoral. Ethically, nothing's wrong with what they're doing. The NCAA as an organization has a lot of issues, and this is one of those things they're going to have to figure out how to deal with because it's not going away. And for them to say something like, we're just going to tell all the universities in California if this passes and we can't appeal it and win, that they're no longer competing in the NCAA is absurd.
Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. So they're going to have to deal with it. Now, there's some legitimate issues pop up. There's going to be legitimate questions around disparity. It's just kind of unfair, but it is what it is.
Right.
I do think that if the NCAA allows it, I think it's fair to put some basic parameters in place to protect the kids.
Like a min-max.
So I think maybe I don't necessarily want to put, a maximum on it, because I don't think that's fair either. If you're a Tim Tebow type and somebody's willing to pay you millions, I don't know that it seems fair to tell them you can't earn that. But I think you need to. I think the university needs to upfront the legal team, and all these transactions probably need to run through the university's legal team. And maybe they take a small cut for that to help reimburse, to take care of the kids, and counselors provided and things like that. But I think there needs to be something in place on part of the university to help protect the kids. Mm-hmm. And if the kid goes, look, whatever you earn, the university's legal team's going to take a tiny percentage, basically as a form of protection for you. This is about paying for their costs and time and making sure these kids don't get taken advantage of. Because I also don't think amateur athletes should be running off and signing whatever deals. They're not going to read the legalese. They're not going to know what they're signing up for. It's going to be a crazy contract. So I think there needs to be some sort of mutually beneficial relationship where, maybe the university earns their time plus a tiny fee, and has their legal team and a counselor represent the players in any of those type of things.
I mean, we already kind of view, maybe it's imperfect in most people's minds. But I at least view it this way, that that sports for the elite that end up playing in college, that go on to go pro, that was a legitimate college experience for them as a gateway to go pro. And so I can see that. And so like for the argument of these aren't actual students, it's like, no, they are. And they might have a technical major that they have claimed, but they are in college pursuing a career of being a professional athlete, and I think that's totally legitimate. And so to your guys' point, I think that's a spot on, great idea. Have these universities have programs in place to where they can teach these young men.
Yeah, they're certainly certainly on a different track than your quote unquote average college student, and that's okay.
But they're still on a career path.
They're still on a path
as a college student, like everyone else is.
Yeah,
and so we should build a system around that.
I think what's important is too, as long as if you're a college student and you don't fall within the NCAA sort of overarching organization, and what I mean by that is you're not a student playing an NCAA sport. A kid from the OSU marching band can go sell his likeness.
Right.
That's, if somebody wants to, hey, you're the dot the I guy, I'll pay you $5,000 to show up in your uniform in my car commercial. Well, that's not fair at all to the player. Just,
right.
It's like any of these other kids can go earn and can go do the things that the athletes can't. And you can't even say, well, they're getting their school paid for. Well, not all of them. There's walk-ons.
It's just so clear that it's trying to control where the dollar goes. That's the part that I'm struggling with.
Trying to control where the dollar goes is part of it, and then I also think from the cultural aspect is that they're trying to preserve the amateur feel of college football,
which I get.
And my point is that ship has sailed.
These kids are getting paid under the radar, whether we acknowledge it or not, for things.
Well, it's not even that. It's, the fan base that they have, how seriously people are taking things like college football. It's no longer just kids out there having fun, and it hasn't been that way for a long time. It is much more than an extracurricular activity. It is money for the university, and it is pro-am for the NFL.
I agree with that, but there's still something that I see at the end of NFL games when hated wide receivers and defensive backs will be like laughing and shaking hands after the game. They're supposed to hate each other, but after the game, they're both like, we're raking in millions. It doesn't matter if we won or lost.
I actually kind of appreciate that about the NFL.
Yeah?
See, but this has come from a hockey guy, where hockey is my favorite sport in the world, and it's also the only professional sport where you'll see on an American television where at the end of a playoff series, the players are still lining up and shaking hands.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that, let's say it's purely likenesses, so these college football players, and honestly, it would probably have to include at least men's basketball as well, because there's enough there's enough star power in men's basketball in college as
for men's basketball. You could go back to high school.
Yeah, that's right. So here's the question. If you allow this, let's say tomorrow, all the schools are allowed to do it. The NCAA sanctions it. It's fine. The kids are allowed to get paid. Do you think that it would sort of whet their appetite to get to the next level faster? Or do you think more students would actually be willing to stay in college longer because there's not as much hardship if they know, hey, I'm Nick Bosa. I could go to the NFL, or I'm already making $150,000 a year.
That's a fantastic point.
I'll play another year or two in college because I want to finish my career, get my degree, and then I'll go make $5 million a year in the NFL. I'll stay another year or two.
Yeah, because in basketball there is no requirement. You can go straight from high school to pro.
That's right. Or did they do 1 year after LeBron?
I don't think they've.
I think after LeBron, they switched to 1 year. I think it's one and done.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know men's college basketball well
in any case, well, you see a lot of one and dones regardless.
I think that's the rule, though.
That's why you'll have teams that are on top of it. They'll challenge for a national championship, and then it was just the 1 year, and now they're over.
Right.
It's because basketball also lends itself to
it's not as physical of a sport. It's a little easier to do one and done there, too.
It also lends itself to, like, if you have the best player in the league, you're going to be vying for the championship.
Right.
Like one player can make that big of a difference in the world of basketball. It's not that way in football.
Yeah. I have also heard and agree with the argument that not that basketball isn't highly athletic, but it's not as physical. Therefore, to compete with people at a higher level, you're not getting roughed up like a running back might be. So the extra couple years of development for college football makes sense.
Sure.
Physically versus the speed of the NFL and the physicalness of it all. I've heard that argument. That makes sense. I'm not a
maybe. Some of that gets countered.
I'm not a physical therapist or doctor
in
or whatever.
You're playing a few times a week.
Yeah.
Or in football, you're not.
Yeah, there's not as much direct impact like there is with literally just getting tackled and beat up.
No, I like your point though. I had never thought about that when you first started posing that question. My immediate thought was, well, they're going to want to leave earlier if they got, but that doesn't make sense. I think you're right that if they can get paid now, it might make more sense for them to continue getting the sort of the life training side of things if they were receiving it, to stick around as long as they can. I think you would see more elite players living out their eligibility in college.
I'm just thinking as a parent, if you're looking at your kid going, well, my kid can finish his dual degrees because he got redshirted his freshman year. He can get both degrees. He's already making six figures. He's not getting beat up in the NFL as bad. Yeah, he's going to make a lot more. But as a parent, I'm thinking, hey, you're making $130,000 a year. Your school is paid for. Get your 2 degrees. Don't cut out 2 years early.
Yeah. And hopefully they have
get to retire early.
Yeah. And hopefully they have the foresight to go, what will life be like after this pro sport?
Yeah.
So maybe I linger here a little longer and get that training and development so that, look at the suicide rate on NFL ex-athletes because they're all banged up. They've got head issues, which is leading to other issues. Their identity and ego was football. That goes away. You strip them of their identity. Who are they now? They're now getting overweight, dealing with these injuries in their home alone. Nobody cares about them anymore. It's a sad state of affairs.
Sure.
So to be able to stick around college a little longer, get some training in a field that you're interested in. Man, to have that much foresight though, when you're being tempted by millions of dollars,
That's tough.
Right.
I
it's
get
tough
it. It's
and
tough.
rare. And I get it, especially if you've had a hard life getting to that point. But man, if you can think just a little more long term about life after this thing you want to go do.
Yeah. And I think that's why if they do something like that, a critical piece is the university needs to have some sort of legal and counselor type team set up to talk kids through these deals. You can't, yes, a kid is 18 and legally they could sign something on their own, but it really feels like if you're going to do it, that's the filter that these deals are all done through. Right. Hey, anything that comes your way, just bring it to us first and sign it. That way we don't do anything weird or shady as far as the NCAA is concerned. Just let us review any legal. We'll be here. We'll be your team. If you go pro, eventually you're going to need your own agent and lawyer to deal with this kind of stuff. But now, while you're here, we're going to help you out with that. And I think that's that extra layer of protection. Kid signs his life away for 80 years worth of advertisements for, $50,000 because he came from a
exactly,
rough neighborhood. And he needs it right now. And so, I just think that there's got to be some level of protection, but that feels small. All universities have lawyers and counselors anyways. This isn't some extra thing. And if you're a huge school and a lot of your players are going to get paid, you might need an extra person or two on staff, but it's not like you're not getting paid for it. Exactly. There's enough money coming in if you're that big of a program.
The universities we're talking about that would be affected by this have the money to do
these are the top 10, 20, 30 blue blood schools. And every now and then you're going to have a small school with a player or two in a year that might get approached to do. And there's going to be a lot of local stuff. Hey, show up in our burger joint, pizza joint commercial. We'll pay you $10,000. You're going to get a lot of that kind of stuff.
They're scheduling one night game away from breaking even on that whole thing.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, it's a super interesting discussion. And I find, the super selfish element of this all is I wish they would sort it out so I can get a new NCAA football
That's
video
what I was
game.
going to say. Whatever they have to do to bring that video game back.
This is why Dylan is so passionate about this. It has now come home.
Absolutely the only reason I'm following this particular
my video
issue.
game back.
The last NCAA football video game was made. It was the NCAA 14. And it had the American Athletic Conference instead of the Big East, but no playoff. And boy, would I love to have a game with the playoff in it. Mm-hmm. And so I've discussed it with many people who are fans of the NCAA games. What the average game goes for $60. If I got to pay $80 or $100 to get an extra cut to go directly to the players and divide it up amongst the schools and whatever, fine. I'll pay $100 for the game. So that I know, hey, we're going to take the extra 40, we're going to divide it up among all the schools, and the schools can divide it up amongst their football team. Fine, do whatever you got to do. Yeah. But that to me would be the real kicker here is let's get those games back. Let's decide all of this. And that's not why my opinion is what it is. If those games, if I was told they were never coming back, I'd still have the same opinion. Okay. However, that would be a wonderful side benefit of them working all this stuff out. So
I agree.
Well, since we said we were going to get to it, and we're talking about the almighty dollar and how it's earned.
Indeed.
Let's address Bilbo's question.
Do it.
Hello, is this thing on? Hi. Hey, this is Bilbo Baggins. I thought I'd give myself a good name so that you guys could have some fun with it while you're on the air. But anyways, I wanted to reach out and say, hey, hi. You guys are doing an awesome job with the From the Middle podcast. I'm a Uber driver and Lyft driver by trade on the side, aside from my day job, and listen to you guys while on the road. And I actually think it's kind of funny because the people in the back seat, they're the ones that usually also say, wow, this is a cool podcast. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the gig economy when you have a moment. I think it'd be a good topic for you guys to discuss on your podcast at some point, and hope to hear from you soon. Peace. Look forward to hearing more from you guys. Great job.
Fantastic.
Well, Bilbo, you sound much perkier than I remember in the Hobbit film, so I'm glad to hear it sounds like things are going well for you.
And we are, I think, now officially the #1 podcast for Uber drivers to make their clients listen to. So
how cool is that?
Super appreciative for that, by the way. For all of you, that's a good tip. when you're with anybody in the car, make sure to play our podcast so that they will definitively ask you what you're listening to, so you can tell them. Everyone should do that, especially Uber and Lyft drivers.
What do you call this?
What is this? Who are these idiots?
Is this rap music?
Yeah. So super appreciate. Seriously though, thank you. That's really cool
nice.
that you do that, and we really appreciate it. And your comments were very kind. So gig economy, it's funny. We might have to come back. I mean, it's such a big issue, so we'll start talking about it. Maybe we'll revisit another time, depending on the length at which we want to talk. The gig economy's been around forever, but the term is newer. So really, this is just part-time work, side work.
Contracted work or freelance work.
Contracted work, freelance. I mean, you literally, Leonardo da Vinci was in the gig economy, right? That's the Mona Lisa, was a side gig to get him a bigger thing. And so this has been around for a very, very long time. But the rise of the internet has created this really interesting mix of things you can do. And Bilbo, your case in point, man, like Uber and Lyft, you have a phone with some apps and a car, and all of a sudden you're a taxi driver, essentially, and you've got your own business. And all these DoorDash delivery service, there's a bunch. Postmates is another one. Grubhub. There are so many. Amazon, you can be an independent contractor and deliver packages for different companies and delivery companies and whatever. There are so many things that you can do on the side. I feel like the internet, for sure, it changed everything. My father-in-law has a business, a moving company. He says it all the time. The internet changed everyone's business forever. And it's 100% accurate. But I think it's created this whole new element of this whole gig economy thing. Fiverr, you talked about when we had our friend Jeremy on, and you were talking about the website Fiverr, where artists can go on there and just make a quick buck on the side. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely gig economy type stuff. Yep. And so it's incredible. I know you've been doing this. I know who you are. I know you've been doing this for a while. And you obviously are making some decent money doing it on top of your normal full-time job. And so it's super interesting. I love hearing about all the different things that people can do on the side. Lots of momtographers we talked about in one of the creative episodes. There's just so many things. They keep popping into my head. So go ahead and share your thoughts, guys.
So, for me, one of the things we talked about when I talked about how I sort of came up as an artist and the ways that I could go out and earn a quick buck. And one of the things I said was like, I think you had mentioned it, Dylan, when you're like, not many people can take a ream of paper, a marker, and an easel and go do caricatures in an event and make a couple $100 in a night. That was far less common, even though it has been around. Not many people have the ability to do that. That's blown up with all the things that you just mentioned. The ability for people to go out and do any sort of little quick thing for a side buck. So the context in which I've seen the gig economy play out over the course of my life, my parents, myself, whatever, has always been supplemental. And I think Bilbo even said he still has a full-time job, but Uber and Lyft is what he does on the side. So I've always seen it as this supplemental thing where you can add to or sort of have icing money.
Yeah, boat money.
Boat money, motorcycle money, as opposed to I'm living this bohemian lifestyle and this is the only thing that I'm doing. And when money comes in, great. And when it doesn't, right, where you're living this like more freelance lifestyle of very high highs and very low lows and the roller coaster that is purely freelancing. So I think it's great. More power to people, like whatever, legitimate legal skill that they have,
right,
that they want to pursue. I think it's awesome, and it allows people to be creative. And whether the system is already developed, like Grubhub and Amazon and Uber and Lyft, or it's something that you want to go do and get a square little thing that you put on your phone where you can accept credit card transactions for whatever service you offer, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I saw a funny joke. Gig economy refers to all those things we already described. Unless it's white collar work, then it's called consulting. So, but that raises a whole other thing. How many people have you seen on LinkedIn or whatever? They're in between jobs. They're a consultant for whatever they were doing before and whatever they're going to do next. In between, they had their own consulting firm.
Right.
And there are actual consulting firms, so I'm not knocking anybody who has built that. But it is funny how many people that I've seen that on their page or profile or whatever. If it's white collar, it's consulting. So there's a joke for you.
I think my official title in corporate America now is principal consultant, so I'm not going to say anything. Kendall, over to you.
Yeah, no, gig economy is from a musician standpoint, right? Because that's musicians. The dream is to be good within gig economy, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Every musician that you've heard was part of gig economy at some point in time, and I mean, there's a lot of musicians in this country, and like 99.99% of them who have quote unquote made it their career are doing it via gig economy. Mm-hmm. And then you have your Taylor Swifts and others who have income that they don't have to worry about the gig economy anymore, but everyone else is grinding and not necessarily. I feel like the motivation for a lot of them is this idea of doing what you love, and pouring sort of your heart and soul into that, and being able to live under a roof while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Is kind of the dream. So it's not really, for at least most musicians that I know, it's not a get rich kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not what they're looking for. If it happens, awesome, but realize that it's not going to, and you're just gonna work your butt off. But you're going to work your butt off doing something that is important to you.
Exactly, yeah.
And so in that respect, I'm all about gig economy, because some of those things, even if it's like, I don't know how many Uber drivers would say that driving people around town is where my passion is, but their passion is probably more along the lines of working within my own schedule is sort of my dream. That's what I want to be able to do, and that's a perfectly legit dream too. Some of the more skill oriented gig economies, like it's not, you can't look at it that way, because if you do, you're not going to make money.
Yeah,
you have to work.
And as a guy who takes a lot of Ubers, they all have some other passion thing that they're pursuing, right? Like this is just the funnel through which they can earn some money just to support that bigger dream that they have.
Yeah.
And some very, very, very successful people that are also driving Uber and Lyft just because they want to network, or they want to put themselves out there. Or they just want that side kind of supplemental income.
Now, the other side, I think, to this discussion is, I'll put out there first that my opinion is that as long as there's a company who's putting out a request saying, hey, would anybody do this for this amount of money? And there are people raising their hands saying, yes, we will do that for that amount of money, then I'm okay with the transaction.
Crowdsourcing.
Right. So I'll start there. But what about this discussion of places saying that, you know, it's unrealistic to expect your average Uber driver to make a living wage doing Uber. That's a legitimate argument that a lot of people have against companies such as Uber, and I'm sure now the Uber and Lyft are sort of the two big examples that everyone talks about.
Right.
But that same story can be said about so much of, probably most of, the newer gig economy that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is you're saying that there's outliers that can make a living wage, and for those people that's great, but we're talking about the average person who's going in thinking that they can make legitimate money with Uber, and a lot of them are failing to do that. Does something need to be fixed?
Yeah, hopefully they go in with proper expectations and they've crunched the numbers to go, okay, if I did the most amount of rides I could do in a day is X, multiplied by days in a week, hopefully they go, okay, I'm not looking to this to be my everything.
Right.
But I can certainly do this in my quote unquote downtime, flip my Uber light on and go drive people to the airport and back.
Mm-hmm. But that gets into that same discussion of like federal minimum wage and where should that be? Because what that discussion doesn't take into account is the whole what about people who don't need the minimum wage to be raised?
Right.
my side gig is going to be flipping burgers because I want my boat money?
Right.
Like, I don't need, but at the same time, we're saying, hey, maybe it's better for society if all jobs are a living wage.
Yeah.
Period. And if that's true, then that is also true for Uber.
Yeah, I think a couple key points that you both made. I think the idea that it's supplemental absolutely feels true for a vast majority of those in sort of living inside the gig economy, whether they're trying to make it full time or whether they know and they own it as a secondary source of income. I think it's incredibly hard to go full time. And I think you mentioned pre-built systems versus other things. I think it's harder to go full time in the gig economy if it's a pre-built system. So if you're living inside somebody else's world, be an Amazon independent delivery driver for Amazon, or be an independent contractor for a roofing window company who you go out and sell, or be and you can, again, some of these things you certainly can make a lot of money. But I think there's a lot of right time, right place. You understand service, you understand sales. But I think it's different too. If you're not talking about living inside another company's system, then I think sky's the limit to a degree. And I think that's a little bit of that capitalist element that we all like about America, right? Like in theory, you can go out and do anything. Have you seen some of these like Instagram, like these guys will cook meals from their home, put them in styrofoam containers. They're essentially food truck without the truck.
Yeah.
They build this following, and they'll do, hey, come to this place and I'll deliver meals to you. And they're literally cooking out of their kitchen. They're posting on Instagram. They're selling on Instagram. It's a little bit of the Etsy thing. It's a little bit of the
Interesting.
Etsy builds a website, but that's all. Etsy's essentially eBay.
Right.
And you can make and sell for whatever margin you want on there. You don't get whatever margin you want with Uber and Lyft.
Right.
You get whatever margin. If your food is good enough, you can charge whatever you want and cook out of your kitchen and post on Instagram and get followers. You can sell whatever you want on Etsy if the demand is there. And so the discussion gets interesting when you're talking about living inside of somebody else's system versus building outside of something like that.
Because it's risk reward, right? Do I want somebody else to have figured out the minefield already and I just follow in those, or do I want to take on the risk and try to figure out the minefield myself? The reward will be higher, but my risk was higher because it wasn't solved yet. I created my own corner of the market.
Yeah, and I think you see that even like we've probably all seen some pictures of some of the extra above and beyond things some Lyft and Uber drivers have done. I've seen where people will have a switch in the back seat and headphones where people can listen to music, and their tips are significantly higher.
Sure.
They offer different drinks and mints and gum, and they're still living within the system, but they know they're going to rake in heavy tips in that system because of some of the above and beyond things that they're doing.
Getting creative inside the system.
Inside the system. That's exactly right. And so, yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a lot to the discussion, but I agree. It feels mostly supplemental, and like very few people ever break through to that full-time status.
Nevertheless, go Billy, go.
That's right. Absolutely.
And thank you so much for playing us or forcing us upon your writers.
That is, yeah. One of our callers that we've had in recently is you two are probably my two favorite callers so far.
Awesome.
Because of the use of force to listen to this podcast.
Which reminds me, I was on our Facebook page today. Shameless plug. Please rate and review us. That really helps because we do not monetize. Reviews are sort of our lifeblood. So if you are, we've got like hundreds and hundreds of likes on our Facebook page. If you could just drop us a quick 5 stars and review us, that would be awesome. Same for iTunes or whatever platform you choose to listen to us on. Rating and reviewing really, really helps the podcast world. So
yeah, and we've said it many times, but even like if somebody's willing to share one of our posts on Facebook, and then we get a little more traction because of their network now seeing it. Anytime that happens, that's always wonderful. But yeah, actually reviewing on Facebook and then reviewing inside the podcast app or inside Spotify, however many stars you think we deserve.
5.
5. And a comment as well. So if you're willing to go in and throw in, your 5 stars and what did you like, what did you not like, or whatever, we definitely appreciate it.
Cool. This has been a great episode. Stay tuned. More fun is coming right around the corner. We appreciate that you listen to us. Follow us at From the Mid Pod on all of the social media platforms. We're also on YouTube. You can send us a voice message like many others have been taking advantage of. We post that link on every single Instagram post, episode post, and as well as our Facebook. So we want to engage with you in that way. Thanks for listening. We love you guys. We're out.
Bye.